Welcome to our podcast.
I completely forgot to record.
No, we're getting off to a great start here. Is that brown face? Are we okay with this?
He's one of those people when he starts talking, you just listen. I hate country music to a level that should be studied.
Yeah. Like a real arrogant prick. That's what I'm going for. An elitist scumbag.
Most of this podcast is going to suck, by the way.
Hello and welcome to yet another tremendous episode of La Murga the Podcast. I am your host, AJ Murga, and today I am talking all about the Odyssey with my lovely wife, Jennifer Mahan.
Hey.
How's it going?
All right.
Yeah, well, good. Yeah. Because if it wasn't, it would be pretty awkward.
A bit better.
I've had more fun, that's for sure.
We had a massive fight before we filmed, and now we have to pretend to like each other.
Oh boy! No, really, I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to get this podcast going. One technical difficulty after another, but here we go. Here's the deal for today. We saw the IMAX yesterday. Did I say IMAX? We saw the IMAX. We saw the Odyssey.
We did see the IMAX.
See how well this is going?
Before the Odyssey, we saw the IMAX.
Yeah, we did.
It's the Iliad before the Odyssey.
Yeah, and for only $60, we got to see the Odyssey in IMAX yesterday, which was fun and exciting. It was actually my second time seeing it. I saw it like basically a week ago in regular 2D, whatever scrunched screen movies.
As Nolan didn't intend.
As Nolan did not intend, exactly. You seem to really, really enjoy it, and I do think the IMAX added a little bit to it, of course, with the spectacle. So what were your initial thoughts after seeing it? Because this was your first time seeing it.
Yeah. I was thoroughly entertained, and that's what I was hoping for it. I was going for blockbuster entertainment. It reminded me a lot of Top Gun Maverick. Mm-hmm. I just had a good time from start to end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of times it should really just be that simple, you know? We're going to talk a lot about the criticisms and the controversies of this movie, but also too, I just kind of want to give our overall thoughts as well. And because I thought it was an amazing spectacle of a film, and oftentimes that's what Christopher Nolan cares most about. I actually watched the making of last night. And in it, he says that his favorite era of cinema is the silent film era because he loves visual storytelling. And that's really, that makes more sense now about what you think about his whole career. He is such a visual storyteller, and that's what he cares more about than anything else. And there's been criticisms of, his scripts not being the greatest, dialogue being too on the nose, historical inaccuracies, which we'll talk a little bit about.
The assault on your ears.
The assault on your ears. Oh my God, yes. Turn down the volume just a little, please.
The poor elderly people next to us were like, it's so loud.
Yeah, it must have been Elderly Day last night because there was a dozen or more elderly people, and they were all like, oh God, as soon as it started with the rumbling. But
we saw at least 5 canes, and my favorite part about that generation is they all act like it's their first day on Earth. They're like walking in the theater like, oh, no. What? But I couldn't blame them. They were looking for seats. I could not see the seat number, and we really needed an usher. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, if you're going to pay $60 for a movie ticket, you the least someone can do is have some pipsqueak take us to our seats. Which used to be my job. I used to be that pipsqueak when I was in high school. But anyway, we're getting sidetracked. So I want to talk about the movie in general, because it is, at the end of the day, like I said, just a big spectacle. And I think that's really what Nolan was intending more than anything else, was for it to just be spectacular filmmaking and entertaining. And the fact that it was maybe an all-time great visual experience, like you said, just pure entertainment. I think that more than anything else needs to be remembered when everybody is criticizing it for what it is. Now, I don't think it's a perfect film. I do have a couple of criticisms, but as far as the controversies go and things like that, they're just, most of them I think are pretty unfounded. But besides the spectacle, what were some of the other things that stood out to you?
I really loved Anne Hathaway's performance in it. Like, she just had these emotional moments that really brought you back into caring about the characters. Mm-hmm. I loved, was it Xerxes? Is that her name? The turn you into pigs.
Oh, yes. I thought it was Cersei.
Cersei?
I thought so,
Cersei.
but I could be wrong, yeah. Samantha Morton's character.
Yes, it was so good when she... So I was a little late to seeing it, so I'd already seen a lot of the memes online of like when people would get their dog would overeat something and like turning them into a pig, and they'd play the music and rub their face. Right. So that's what I was going in, seeing that. And I was like, wow, like it really, she was one of the only characters where I was like, yeah, get him. Take out the guy.
Yes, pretty much. I liked a lot of the female performances as well. I thought the female acting stood out over the male acting, in my opinion. I mean, this was a really good performance for Matt Damon. He is in almost all of the movie. Tom Holland, though, he's a good actor, but I don't feel like this was much of a stretch of a role. We've seen him kind of be this like young, impressionable, weak at times character, and I thought that was a little bit of a shame. But Lupita Nyong'o's Helen of Troy was interesting, and I thought it was a very different take, but a good one. And you're right, Anne Hathaway's, every time she was on screen, she was so dramatic. Zendaya is always amazing. Zendaya. She's always amazing, and in the handful of scenes she had, she brings so much weight and power to those roles, which is what she does with everything. But if I have a criticism, I'm going to loop in the acting along with it. It's the Calypso part of the movie, and that is actually one of the biggest differences from the book. He jumps straight from Calypso to Ithaca when there is a couple of other trials and tribulations and places that Odysseus goes to, and so we didn't get any of that, but Calypso keeps him in the book out of love, and here she's keeping him to spare him from trauma. And I thought that was interesting to have Odysseus be guilt-ridden from the creation of the Trojan horse, which ultimately kills a whole city full of people. And I loved how Zendaya's character followed him around, haunting him just like a ghost, which was, again, that representation of that guilt. But to me, where it kind of fell a little short, is if you look at it from the emotional journey of the main character. So Odysseus is guilt-ridden from the start of the movie for creating the Trojan horse. Then by the time we get to the Calypso part, he's forgotten it completely, because, I mean, he forgets literally everything. And that is where the majority of the narrations take place in the movie. So we're bouncing all over in this non-linear circular structure, which was, again, entertaining and what Nolan likes to do, and it worked well in this movie. But the problem was that narrator, who can't remember anything, is piecing together the plot, but he's not piecing together his emotional journey. The emotional journey gets kind of thrust upon him at the very end of the film. And then what do we do from there? He goes back to Ithaca and he kicks all the suitors out, and then he runs away with his wife. Again, not really facing the emotional weight of his guilt. We didn't get to see enough of the emotional journey, and I thought it was a bit of a cheap trick to hide that from the main character through memory loss, and then drop it towards the end. He should have been atoning the entire time, not only physically but emotionally. And yes, we get to see that in bits and pieces throughout the actual journey home, but he, the narrator, which ultimately is the kind of the current version or the present version, because once after the Calypso part, there is no more narrations in the movie. We're caught up to date now. That person forgot all of that journey and doesn't really get to feel the weight of it until it smacks him at the very end. So you can make an argument that for trying to save him from his trauma, she did a worse trauma by hitting him all with it at the very end of the movie. However, the rest of the movie is all plot. It doesn't really deal with it. So the main issue that I have with the movie is the plot, the emotional journey of Odysseus, as well as the plot of the Odyssey, do not align. They really, really don't. And I haven't seen many people talking about this online. I just thought, there are, of course, on-the-nose dialogue and other things that you can criticize. But to me, that's the part of the film, especially on a rewatch. I was specifically looking for this because I kind of noticed it in the first watch. And I just don't think that the emotional weight of Odysseus's emotional journey hits like it should, whereas everything else does. Everything else is firing on all cylinders for the most part. So does that kind of track with you? Does that make sense? Or what do you think about any of that?
Yeah, I think there was some inconsistencies with where he was going. So I was like, what are we trying to teach him here? Are we trying to teach him not to be so prideful? Because at one point they show him as this like wise sage to these boys when he's hunting, and he whatever that word is for when you make a bow make a sound.
Oh, right.
When
right.
he like plucks it. Thank you. When he plucks the bowstring so that the boar can hear him, and he, that's like a whole interaction. You're like, wow, he's wise. That's like 30 years prior, because their kids are all little, and they go off for that 20-year adventure. But then when the Cyclops is already stabbed in the eye, they've already escaped, and then he shoots him in the eye with the arrow. And that's supposed to be like, that's how he angers Poseidon. Okay, but he had already proven, 15 years prior in his time, that he wouldn't do something like that.
Fair.
So, which is fine. People can change. But if that's our trajectory, it's like, okay, war has turned him into a worse person. So are we supposed to like lean into that, and then his like troops stop trusting him as much? But then at some points he's still really wise. Like when he figured out we're turned into a pig, so he's wise again. But then he wants to listen to the siren, so he's foolish again.
Right. And
because it was told in a non-linear format, it makes it's even more confusing. Like I know what I'm guessing Nolan wants the trajectory to be the guilt, but he just seems so inconsistent. I'm like, when is he learning this lesson?
Exactly. And I think you hit the nail on the head with that description, because since we're jumping around, circular nonlinear structure, we don't get any time with him in order to feel this emotional weight and to truly atone for it. And you're right. And I think that's kind of the biggest issue. So the circular structure, the nonlinear structure, it makes it more entertaining. It creates kind of this mystery where you're figuring out what happened, right? And that was, again, very entertaining for the plot. But there wasn't enough time thought about or spent on going back and making sure that the emotional journey works with the plot. And so if you take away that nonlinear structure, if you make it linear, then you would see how each place changes him, right? Theoretically. But because we bounce around so much, you're right. It's like every scene he is whatever the plot needs him to be. And so that's kind of that's another addition to what I'm talking about here with my biggest criticism is definitely this is a plot heavy film. Definitely Nolan clearly cares more about the plot than anything else, and that's okay. I still really enjoyed the movie. It's still very good. But but to add something to the main character like the guilt, which is different from the book, then why not do something with it? I felt like he really dropped the ball on what could have been an amazing emotional journey, which is kind of what we got in Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer was an incredibly smart character-driven film. If we just would have paired some of that with this could have been literally a perfect movie, and one of the best movies maybe in decades.
And Interstellar too, McConaughey's emotional journey, like, why'd you let me go, Murph? Like, that was the most impactful part of the movie, and it makes more sense for him. And
ultimately, I'm glad you brought up Interstellar, but ultimately I can't put the Odyssey in the tier of my favorite Nolan films. I put it just below Memento, Inception, Interstellar, The Dark Knights. And I'm a huge fan of Interstellar, and I think the main reason why is not only is it just entertaining and interesting. I like the complexities and the philosophies and of black holes and things like that, and going into deep space. So it's just interesting for me. But it's the emotional journey, and you're right. And that movie's not told non-linear. There are times when we get flashes of people's point of views that are non-linear, but they're put into places of the movie where there's a plane crash and people are knocked out, or there's a time jump because they go to that planet and time is different. Now they come back and things have drastically changed, right? So, but they're so smart about the way that they do it. He catches up on an entire life that he's missed of his daughter through these messages, right, for 20 years or whatever the hell it was. There's nothing like that in the Odyssey. The Odyssey just kind of jumps around. And it's told exceptionally well, but it jumps around where the plot needs it to. It does not jump around where the character needs it to. And I feel like that was a bit of a shame. So for me, what I would do to maybe, I'm not going to say improve this movie, but what I would do in order to temper a little bit of my issue with it regarding this that I'm talking about is I think this movie actually becomes better if you take out Calypso completely. I think if you take out Calypso completely, you never have that memory loss. You add in those other two pieces of places that he went to, which I escapes me now, but and then you just basically, and you can still jump around a little bit, but maybe not quite as much as you did. Take pieces from Memento or take pieces from Interstellar and jump around a little bit. But even Memento, which is a movie that jumps around a ton and has a structure that goes literally backwards and forwards at the same time, Memento worked on a character level, and this to me didn't. So, yeah, I mean, I know that that's a long rant, but any thoughts for you come up for that?
I wonder if the Calypso was approached the way it was because modern audiences wouldn't like the hypocrisy. So Penelope is supposed to be completely committed to him, not be with any other suitors, but he can kind of gallivant and do what he wants. So if we would have changed the Calypso to not being manipulated mentally and to him just being like, well, I've been on this journey for however long, and I just found a place where everything is taken care of. I can just chill here and forget about everything. Like, I think that would have been more interesting. Because a lot of times when people are dealing with trauma, there is a phase where they escape. They look to dull. In modern times, it's usually with drugs, alcohol. But that could have been a really nice, like, comparison. And then it would add to the levels of returning home. Because Agamemnon...
Nice.
When he comes home, he has that betrayal. So I feel like if we would have given more reasons for Penelope to betray him when he gets back, when Odysseus gets back, it would have added some more suspense. Because when they were like, hey, come back in a disguise, see who you can trust and who you can't trust. I never for any moment thought his son, his the blind guy with the dogs, or his wife would betray him. There was never any question of that. But if he had been sleeping around...
And maybe word got to her or something like that.
Or he tells her or something.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And again, kind of goes back to lost opportunity for more character, intrigue, tension, suspense, whatever. And this movie just leaned, I would have been totally fine with this movie being 4 hours if it would have included the character growth that we're kind of talking about here. But you bring up another good point, which is a cultural statement of the double standard of well, the wife has to be totally pure and loyal.
Just.
Yes. But the man gets to sleep around. I mean, he was with Calypso for 7 years, and in the book they're in love. Do you think that Nolan was trying to make any larger statements with any piece of this film like that? Did any of that come across to you? Because there are a lot of conspiracies online about him trying to make, political statements or cultural statements with his casting and things like that.
Yeah, which, I don't know. I feel like that's a lot of grasping at straws. He's known for reusing actors.
Anne Hathaway, I think this is like her 4th or 5th movie with it. Maybe more, actually.
So the Elliot Page complaint is so strange to me because he was just reusing actors. And I felt like that was really appropriately cast. Yeah. Like, they established that Cinnamon?
Cinnamon. Oh, no, I had... Sinon.
They kind of established already that he was smaller, gonna not have as big of an advantage. Yes. And the emotional impact, I thought that casting was appropriate. The Lupita Nyong'o issues is just, I think that's just racism.
I agree.
Because it's I don't think he was trying to make a political statement. She's unbelievably beautiful. Yeah. And an incredibly talented actress.
Right.
Who wouldn't cast her to be one of the most beautiful people at all time?
Exactly.
Just a racist. That's the only...
Yep.
Are there other very beautiful women? Yes.
Of course.
But is she one of the most beautiful I've ever seen? also yes. And
Yeah.
she acts like she did not have a lot of screen time.
No.
She was so emotional every time. Even when she was playing her twin. Like,
Yes.
that was even shorter. And like, wow.
Oh, I don't even think her twin had any lines. You know, I think the only time we heard her voice is when she's screaming, either from crying from, you know, the death of her child, or screaming because she's killing him. So, spoiler alert, by the way, if there's going to be lots of ridden with spoiler alerts. But no, yeah, you bring up a good point. I mean, Helen of Troy, the lore goes is she's like one of the most beautiful women of all time, if not the most. And I would say Lupita Nyong'o fits into that category for modern times. And here's the issue that I have with, you know, and I agree, it's just racism at the end of the day. But you can't have it both ways. There are people who scream, oh, be historically accurate, and there are people who scream diversity. There are people who scream, oh, that's not, you know, that's not accurate to the text or whatever. And I just think you can't have it each way. There has to be a decision made. And I do think that Nolan takes sometimes big risks with his decisions, and they don't always pay off. But I 100% applaud the courage to do so. And I loved the casting in this movie. Elliot in this movie and Tom Holland, actually, if you put them side by side, they've got some mannerisms that are very similar. Like, I think Elliot is supposed to be kind of his son figure in the war. And then Tom Holland obviously is his real son. And I believe their hair was very, very similarly styled and everything. Their stature is very similar. So I think Nolan thinks about these things because, again, he's a visual storyteller. So I think Elliot was the perfect size, or maybe it was Tom Holland that was the perfect size to match Cinnamon. So, you know,
Was this Tom Holland's first?
I believe so. Yeah. I believe this is his first time with him. So, I agree. I think a lot of the criticisms when it comes to that kind of stuff is just totally unfounded, and when it comes down to it, it's racist or it's some kind of
Veiling it, because I feel like I've heard some people say, like, and none of these are history scholars who make these claims. They're like, there wouldn't have been black people at that time. Okay, so are we going to go through the genetic makeup of every actor? Because I'm sure some of those people are white people from other places besides Greece. Probably all of them. So that same argument you would apply to the entire cast. But they only choose to use it against Lupita?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
it bothers me too.
That's why it's so dumb. Like, it's not even good arguments. And so it's frustrating.
Well, to harp on the historical inaccuracies for a minute, like that criticism. First of all, this is a legend. This did not actually happen. This was a fable that was before Homer's time, and Homer happened to be the one to write it down, right? So this is thousands of years old. And people are acting like it's the Bible that he ripped off, which is crazy to me. I'm a historical fiction writer. I love historical fiction. It's my favorite, genre.
So this is historical fiction, isn't it?
This is historical fiction, yes, but I actually classify it more as historical fantasy. I love, and to me, like, yes, Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings are fantasy, but they feel like they're in an old world, right? It feels like such an ancient world, like that. But it's also got like this familiarity to like the Middle Ages or something like that. And so yes, this was supposed to take place during the Bronze Age, and he could have been painstakingly researching attire from the Bronze Age and the dialects and things like that of ancient Greece during that time. But you know what I'd rather him do? Focus on how to make a box that allows him to film with IMAX. One of the things that they did on the making of last night that I watched is his engineers. The reason no one's ever been able to use an IMAX for camera for an entire movie is because it's too loud. It flips just like an old projector. You hear the film in it flipping. It's way too loud.
Oh,
it
so
can't
is that
capture
why
audio.
When you're watching an IMAX movie, the screen does this throughout the whole thing?
Yes, exactly. So you cannot use the audio captured during the filming. So what his engineers did is they made a tailored size box that is totally soundproof, and they just put that bad boy in there, and they were able to get it 6 inches from the actor's face.
Oh, I bet James Cameron is so mad he didn't think of that.
Exactly. So that's kind of my point. Is like, I don't personally, even though I love historical fiction, I love historical fantasy, whatever you want to call this, I'm not so precious about especially a story like this because, again, at the end of the day, it's a fictional story. It takes place during a real time in history, but that doesn't mean that you have to be 100% faithful to that time in history, because this text isn't. This text is full of Cyclops characters and sirens and monsters that jump out with, 8 to 10 heads that swallow people whole. Like, where the hell is that in the King James Bible? There's none.
Keep using that as a historical text.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like you need a different example.
Yeah, I do.
Another one not full of fantasy.
Yeah, fair enough. But you see my point. There's plenty of people in the world who believe that is true history, and that's fine. I don't want to, say it is or it isn't. It's not my place to say so. But I think we walk a slippery slope when we basically take anything written at that time and compare it to the same, like it's gospel. Is Gilgamesh the oldest literature in the world? Is that supposed to be taken so literally? Like, I don't think so.
I don't want it historically accurate. We wouldn't have been able to understand a single word anyone said.
Exactly.
And everyone's teeth would have been nasty.
That's fair.
And as long as their costumes are old looking enough to where you can suspend disbelief while you're watching it.
Yes.
And apologies to anybody who really knows the time.
Yeah.
They're never going to be happy. It's like when medical people watch medical shows. For the most part, you're always going to find something wrong with it.
Yes.
But as long as the vast majority of audiences can get with it, then I think it's fine.
No movie or story or anything like that is perfect. You're always going to be able to poke holes in everything. And so, I'm not personally somebody who thinks it needed to be taken that seriously and had every little factual accuracy to the T. It might be different if he was, doing an actual real story that's known very, very well. Like Oppenheimer, okay? He did Oppenheimer, right? If he would have turned Oppenheimer into a frog, magically, then sure, I could hear an outcry. Yeah, exactly. If he got changed by Samantha Morton's character into a pig, but still found a way to make the atomic bomb, then I could see people in an uproar about, wow, you turned Oppenheimer into a pig. There's nothing like that to cry about because this is not a real story. Mm-hmm. So it's just that to me is another, almost as crazy as the racist stuff to me, honestly. And again, I write historical fiction, so if somebody should be mad, it should be me.
Yeah, they're making a problem out of nothing.
Exactly. And I think that there's a lot of people out there who like to do that sort of thing. One more quick note about the casting, and then we'll move on to something else. I didn't recognize him. I should say this. He did look familiar, but I didn't recognize who it was. The storyteller is Travis Scott. Did you recognize him?
I didn't, but I'm not a huge Travis Scott fan.
I'm not either. So for a lot of personal reasons, but so there was some outpour about that casting as well. It didn't really bother me. I thought that was a very small part of the movie. He had essentially one paragraph of lines that he repeated.
And he did great. I was entertained. Great.
Yeah, it was a captivating way to start the movie, and then he does it again at the very ending banquet. So
wouldn't you want a performer doing that role?
Exactly, and somebody who has stage presence, right? Mm-hmm. So as much as may not care for Travis Scott personally, he's got stage presence, obviously. So anyway, that was just another example of controversial casting that I thought was interesting. But
I have a theory about the casting.
Please.
Tom Hardy. His doppelganger was there.
Yes, he was.
So where's Tom Hardy?
I don't know. Maybe Tom...
Do you think he was one of the Giants?
I think Tom Hardy... Yeah, no kidding. He probably was the stunt double for the Giants. But Tom Hardy in this movie, I'm not sure where he fits. Because I suppose there's another version of this where Tom Hardy is Odysseus. Mm-hmm. And sure, I'd be okay with that. But Matt Damon he's great. And I thought that this was actually one of his best roles maybe ever.
When I first... sorry, Matt Damon, but when I first saw the trailer, mm-hmm. I was like, ugh.
Yeah, I was a little concerned.
I thought the whole time I'd be watching it, mm-hmm. I'd be watching Matt Damon
mm-hmm.
as Odysseus. And it didn't feel like that at all. Because in Inception, a movie I love, mm-hmm. the whole time I'm kind of like, that's Leo.
Yeah.
I don't ever think of him as whoever his character is.
Right, yeah. Leo is a chameleon, mm-hmm. but typically when he's playing a real person. But I agree with you. Matt Damon has always kind of been Matt Damon. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's got some great roles, great movies, obviously. But I was a little concerned as well. But he really disappears in this role maybe more than I've ever seen before. And I really appreciated that. He's one of the highlights of the movie for me. Yeah,
It's nice we were able to get him home this time.
Yes, let's get him home this time. Well played. Well played.
you.
So let me move on to just a couple more controversies or whatever. There was an outcry from the Greek community and about there not being, I don't believe, a single actor of Greek descent in this movie.
One?
I believe that was
See,
what they
that's
said.
if you want to call racism, like if you want to be
yes.
like, there's an issue. If there's not a single one.
I believe so. If anybody has a right to be upset about the casting, it is the Greek community of actors, and if there really isn't one, I mean, sure, that I feel like that's the only criticism with some actual
Can you
weight
name a
to
Greek actor? I just don't really keep that in my brain of what people's backgrounds are.
I don't really keep it in my brain either. I don't think about what somebody is or where they're from. I mean, I oftentimes have to check things. Well, for example, I just watched a trailer reaction the other day, and it was Karen Gillan.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, she's Scottish. I had no idea she was Scottish. So, and again, she's never used that accent in a movie. So I never think about it. I still every once in a while hear Christian Bale talk, and I'm like, oh yeah, he's from Wales. Like, you just forget. I can't. So maybe they should have provided us with a list of actors that would have been better than Matt Damon and Anne Hathaway and things like that, and then we could have listened to it. But
gosh, now you have me so curious. I want to see a list of all Greek actors.
I know, yeah. Well, maybe we'll have to do that in a follow-up episode, but not really.
As an apology to the Greek community.
Yeah, no kidding. But here's kind of my issue with that kind of statement, though. The only pushback I'll put on a statement like that, because it's not really my place to criticize that sort of thing, and this goes along with the racist stuff too, casting Lupita Nyong'o and things like that. Actors, one of their biggest jobs is to play something they're not in real life. And so, yes, it would have been cool if there was, nothing but Greek descent actors in this movie. But do any of them, carry the weight of the Hollywood box office on their shoulders? I mean, with a movie of this scope, you have to consider that. You have to. And if you are like, oh, I don't care, put in some unknown theater Greek actor as the lead, that's BS. A movie like this would never get made unless you have A+ tier actor in pretty much all the roles.
It was too expensive and too big of a risk, too.
Yes, exactly. So that's my pushback. Yeah, it would have been great to have an all-Greek cast, but it's so unrealistic that it would probably kill the movie. Because here we are, we're huge movie fans, we can't think of one Greek actor.
There's got to be one.
I mean, I'm sure there is.
Oh, all the people in My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Well, that's what I was going to say, but I can't think of their names.
Nia Vardalos.
There you go, Nia something or other.
But almost everyone in that movie would be aged out by now.
100%. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And then I think not even all of them are still living.
Probably not. Should have put more Windex on, I guess.
Oh boy.
I do. That's like the only part of the movie I remember.
I like that.
That was a cute part of the movie.
Joey Fatone as Odysseus.
Another controversy is that they filmed in occupied Sahara, Western Sahara. I don't personally really know much about this. Again, not really my place to comment, but I did want to bring it up. Do you know anything about this? Do you have any thoughts about that sort of thing? Because again, I'm not personally somebody who really worries that much about a film crew going into a place like when the Mulan thing happened, right? Mulan was filming in occupied China, parts of occupied China or whatever. I don't personally take a personal offense when something like that happens, because I want some authenticity. If they would have filmed this in a green screen stage the whole time, do we think that we would have enjoyed the movie nearly as much? So my point is them filming in some places that really look the part that it's supposed to, I think is a good thing, and I don't really know how it affects the occupied lands for Hollywood to come in and do that.
Money.
Sure.
I mean, first of all, this is just guessing. I have no idea the behind the scenes. But if money changed hands that funded a bad guy,
right,
that's bad.
I agree, and that's a good way to put it. If that's what happened, I don't personally know what happened, and also too from the reports that I read, they were speculating as well. I don't really know the answer to this one. But at the same time, to act like that only happens when Hollywood shows up and films a movie, to not act like our own political leaders are doing the same effing thing all over the world is totally ridiculous, quite frankly.
If
And
anything,
it's
Hollywood
hypocritical.
hypocritical, and Hollywood would bring attention to
Yes.
the issue. So, like,
Liberal Hollywood, right?
yeah, if they showed up to a place that needs more eyes on
Yep.
it, this is how you get more eyes on it.
A good point. I mean, you could make an argument that like now here we are having the conversation about it, and that's bringing awareness. So like there are some good things to be taken from this either way. So anyway, that was one interesting criticism.
I hadn't heard that one before.
Yeah, one interesting controversy. But to wrap up here, just on the pure scope of the filmmaking of this film was so impressive. Kind of going along with what I was saying about the IMAX camera. In the cave where the Cyclops was, first of all, the Cyclops was amazing. I could have watched a whole documentary about how they did the Cyclops, but they built an entire sound stage inside the cave because they wanted to be able to use the audio inside the cave, and apparently it was way too echoey to be able to use.
The sheep were the soundboards.
Yeah, exactly. And so no, they spent they spent so much money building this massive sound stage that like ventilated sounds that they didn't want out, which was super interesting. And so the sheer lengths that Nolan is willing to go to are so impressive to me, and I just feel like that kind of stuff again. We can criticize these things with the story or criticize his choices for casting or whatever, but we don't talk enough sometimes about these innovative things that, quite frankly, no one's ever done before.
I just got mad about the American Sniper baby all over again.
Exactly. The American Sniper baby. Like, tell me about it. And people love Clint Eastwood. So, but yet, he can't find a real child for Bradley Cooper to hold. And Bradley Cooper's a good actor, but he's not that good. Because that baby was 100% fake. Yeah, exactly.
That's not how real babies move.
Sorry, Bradley Cooper. He's a phenomenal actor, but...
And a great director, too.
Yeah, and a really good director. Yeah, absolutely. But along the lines of just the practical effects of this movie and the sheer scope of this movie, what do you think is next for Nolan? Like, how does he top a movie like this? And where would you like to see him go next? You want to see him do other adaptations? Maybe some stories that weren't good the first time? Like 310 to Yuma comes to mind. The new 310 to Yuma that I knew, but the more modern 310 to Yuma by James Mangold, so much better of a movie than the original Western. Anything like that come to mind that you want Nolan to tackle?
I'm torn because I'm like, do I want him to keep doing what he does well? Yeah, that's always nice.
Right.
Do I want him to push himself at the risk of being disappointed? That's always possible. I think could he try a different genre that he hasn't done? None of those are like, he could do horror, but I don't think he would do it better than other people right now. Romantic comedy, blah. The number one criticism I hear, and of course my algorithms are geared towards me, is how he handles female characters. I'm curious. He's got to, I'm sure, hear this stuff too. Does he want to take it on? Because I would rather him not write female characters than write female characters bad.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting take, I think, because, like, first of all, how do you not write female characters in a story at all? And then also, too, if you did, like, imagine the uproar at that. Like, you made the Odyssey with not one woman in it. Like, you know what I mean? So I agree with you. And also, too, like, I think it's much more your place to have an opinion on that than mine. But to write a bad character anyway, whether they're male or female, is not something that anyone wants to do, obviously, when they set out to make a movie. But I do think it's kind of interesting that it's either all or nothing. Like, we did talk about whether or not this movie passes the Bechdel test.
Which I think it does. Fight me in the comments if you do. I think when Penelope tells her handmaiden, or whatever word you want to use to describe her, like, get bent. Yes, it was because she portrayed her for a man, but in that moment, they were not talking about men. And I also don't think the Bechdel test is a good test on whether a movie is good for women anyway, because, Nicole Kidman as a robot, Stepford Wives.
Oh, right.
That is not a good feminist movie either. No. It tries, but blah. And it passes the Bechdel test. And I'm sure there's a dozen other examples I'm not thinking of right now.
Yeah. I agree. I'm glad you said that too. It's not a good barometer of, are the female characters in this movie good or not, And
I think they are.
Oh, in this movie, definitely. I think the females stand out to me more than anybody other than Matt Damon.
Yeah, because they were going through more suffering.
Yes.
On like a lifelong emotional level. The
Yes.
men were at war and they had the suffering of war, but the women were prisoners. No matter
Yes.
what happens, what outcome of the wars happen, they're prisoners.
100%. And I think Anne Hathaway is really the star of that. You know, like if I had to pick who's the best female actor in this movie, or you know, with this part anyway, you feel the 20 years of frustration, and you see the pain and the anger, like, you know, lock them up and burn them, you know, and she's just so spiteful by the point that she's gotten there. And I think the reason why I have such an issue with Odysseus not remembering the 20 years that he was gone until the very end is because look at the difference between Anne Hathaway and him. Anne Hathaway is so scorned and so, you know, she's got 20 years of just suffering and she's felt every second of it. And Matt Damon shows up and he's still kind of got a bit of a grin on his face, right? Like it's just, there's such a difference there. And I think that you could make an argument that the most well-written character in this movie is Anne Hathaway. And so, I agree with you that in most of Nolan's movies, the females don't stand out enough. But there are exceptions to that, and I do think Anne Hathaway is one. I also think Carrie-Anne Moss in Memento, I think, is probably another. I think she's fantastic in that movie.
Anne Hathaway in Interstellar again.
Yeah, Anne Hathaway in Interstellar. But then, of course, too, the females of Oppenheimer. You know, Emily Blunt is amazing in Oppenheimer, and Florence Pugh, she's always good, and she's really good in that too. I agree, like the females in his movies need work, but I'm going to argue that most of his characters need work.
Yes, the men aren't that complex either.
Yes, most of the time.
People are like, hey, you can't write a female character. Well, a lot of times the men aren't that well fleshed out.
And again, I think it goes back to the fact of what does he prioritize? When you're telling a story, it is all about making choices. You have endless amounts of choices that you have to make. And then from those choices, you have consequences that you have to deal with. In this movie, and in pretty much every movie, he has told us time and time again who he is. He is a visual spectacle storyteller.
This is not character driven. This is plot driven.
Yes. So if you want to see a political statement, if you want to see well-developed characters, you know, maybe go watch somebody else. Go watch somebody else's movie, because the only movie that I'm going to say that he does a phenomenal job with the script is Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
And surprise, surprise, it won Best Picture. So, and I honestly think that's why it won Best Picture more than any other reason.
Do you think Odyssey is going to get Best Picture?
I think it should get nominated, and I do think it's one of the best movies of the year so far. Clearly, just from all of the spectacle and everything that we've talked about, there's enough good that outweighs the little bit of bad in this movie. And for me, it's nearly a perfect film because the good is so good. When this movie is hitting, and for me, it is from the time that they leave Troy to the time that he gets to Calypso, that whole section of the film is, I think, maybe perfect. It's fantastically done. Like, everything about it. I can't think. I was watching it again a second time, and I could not find one flaw with that whole section of the movie. And that's a big chunk of the movie.
Yes.
Absolutely, a big chunk of the movie. And I mean Calypso, when he gets to Calypso in the chronological order of the plot, because I know where he's at Calypso, you know, off and on throughout the movie, obviously. But yeah, that whole section of the Odyssey itself is fantastic. I don't know if you answered my question about what would you like to see him tackle next.
Female characters.
Okay. Gotcha. For me, I would love to see him do more adaptations. I think that this was such an interesting take on the Odyssey that I can't imagine anyone doing better, especially when you talk about the visual spectacle that it was. I would love to see him do, some kind of like gladiator type of movie, like it doesn't have to be that time frame, but like pick some time in history that's super interesting to him and whatever speaks to him, and tell that story. And maybe, to shut the critics up, be a little bit more historically accurate this time. But he's already proven he can do that. I mean, Oppenheimer, I don't remember any of those criticisms with Oppenheimer. No. So, again, I think it's what he values most, and this was a fictional piece of writing, and he decided to take liberties with it, and I'm glad he did, because all but one of those liberties worked out very, very well for me. So I guess you're right. Keep doing what you're doing. But also, too, at the same time, I think he has to be careful telling every story with this non-linear circular structure, because on a second watch, the emotional journey of the character being Matt Damon did not hit the same for me. And part of it was because of the way it was written, like we've already talked about. But the other part of it was a lot of the mystery of this movie is Matt Damon remembering pieces of his of what happened to him, and all of those again were plot. So it didn't really hit quite the same emotionally. When I saw the movie the very first time, when he finally got to Penelope, I was like choked up. I was like, yes, it finally, like, the journey's finally over. It worked out. The second time, I was like, cool, this was entertaining. You know, I was like, that was fun, but I had a good time watching it again, but I did not feel the emotional weight that I did the first time, not at all. And that's not always the case. I mean, I get teary-eyed every time I watch Shawshank Redemption, you know, and I've seen that movie 100 times. And the reason is because we feel every second of the journey with Andy Dufresne. Mm-hmm. You know, when he first goes into prison, from the moment he breaks out, it's not told in this twisting non-linear plot where his suffering is kept from him until the very end. Like, there's just an issue that I have with that I've kept harping on, of course, but we'll leave it at that. Is there any parting words, or if I talked your ear off enough?
My parting words is, as somebody who's really sensitive to animal violence, I actually applaud how they did it, because it was an inescapable part of the story. It needed to be there. But they did a really good job of filming it in a way where it's like, it wasn't close up, it wasn't gory. Really, if as long as you clicked your imagination off, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. And I appreciate that. It made it more entertaining and more watchable for me.
I agree. And I echo that as well. And you just reminded me of the one part that did get me a little teary-eyed at the part that got me emotional. On the second watch. And it was the dog, when he gets back to the dog and it wags its little tail and then passes. That was like the perfect moment. That was, and that's when I watched it for the first time, I was like, okay, that's why the dog is in this movie. Because at first I was like, we don't really need this. They're being so mean to it. But then I was like, okay, that was a great moment. Yeah, and it was a good way for Tom Holland to learn that who he was. So, overall, great movie. Thanks for talking with me about it. Always great to spend time together. I enjoyed it. And
need more female voices on the Nolan world.
And in La Murga the podcast.
Yes.
Thanks a lot for joining us on another episode of La Murga the podcast. This bonus episode about the Odyssey. Let us know what you liked about the Odyssey, and let us know what you want us to talk about. And also, too, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, what are you doing? Subscribe to the channel. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Good episode, right? I don't think anything could have gone smoother. This was a picture-perfect podcast episode. Everyone will say so in the comments below, I'm sure.
Oh, don't you love it when the memory card fills up right when you're about to sign off?
It knew. It was tired of us.
It knew. We've talked for way too long.